Hi all, Alfred Ayache here, and this is Art Attack Won't Die. Some time ago, I came across the work of Jen Ryan, a Buffalo artist whose staccato art style appealed to me. I thought I could reproduce her style in my generative art practice. I called this modality blooms. The first step was recreating the ticks she used, so I worked on the shape and the angles. And I thought about the positioning and the organic growth of each piece and the colors, but mainly I concentrated on getting the ticks right. It turns out just designing and drawing a tick was a lot harder than I expected. So I worked on it for a few weekends. I never got the ticks looking as slick as Jen's. I used Bezier curves to try to get a smooth surface, but the best I could do so far was make it look like a protozoa. But other life commitments kept intruding, like our trip to Morocco and my gallery show. So for this hackathon, I thought I'd dive back in to blooms and try to get it done. I had some idea that it had been about a year since I started it. I checked the date stamps on the blooms outputs. It turns out it's been 4 years. Time, it really sneaks up on you. Back in 2021, I'd gotten blooms to the point where I could draw the ticks and position them, and even bend them to a degree. Great. But I also have to programmatically accrete them around a seed, so it looks like a bloom. In order to do that, I have to know where I have empty space. I figured out a possible mechanism for that. As I add a tick, I map it onto a shadow map, which is just a lower resolution array. And that's about where I left it for 4 years. But the mapping wasn't very well rendered. It was off register. And that's where I picked it up again a couple of days ago. This time I used AI and vibe coding. The AI went over the top with fancy edge detection and anti-aliasing and cleanup routines to fix the mistakes. Even so, it kept getting a bunch of false positives outside the tick and false negatives inside the tick. So I suggested a simpler strategy. Lose the edge detection and anti-aliasing. Instead, make a simple polygon to more or less closely match the Bezier curves of the tick. Find the bounding boxes of the upper and lower parts of the tick and test each point in the shadow map to see whether they were in or out of the polygon. Within a couple of iterations, we got much better registration between the tick and the mapping on the shadow map. No false negatives inside the tick, and very few false positives outside the tick. So that's as far as I got in 2 days of hackathon, the third day being this presentation. Next up, an algorithm for positioning the next tick, maybe at the spring hackathon. Thank you to the hackathon committee. These hackathons don't just come out of thin air. They take a lot of work behind the scenes by dedicated volunteers. Thanks for all your hard work. Thank you to ACV for supporting our hackathons and indirectly my art practice.